Good afternoon. At this afternoon's Intelligence Forum's Who Are You podcast, we're very privileged to have Stuart Payne, Chief Executive of the North Sea Transition Authority. Stuart, thank you very much indeed for agreeing to have this interview today.
Hello, Harry. Good to see you.
So the first question I'd like to ask you is, could you share with us your professional journey to where you are today, please?
Happy to. So very briefly, I studied psychology originally and went into the world of human resources. I've always worked in and around the energy space doing that. And so I worked for Shell for a large part of my career in Aberdeen and in London and work in the Netherlands, and then moved to the US before coming back to Aberdeen to become the HR director for a company called Dana Petroleum, which are headquartered in Aberdeen and operate in various countries around the world. From there, I joined an organization called the Oil and Gas Authority, which is the newly created regulator for the upstream energy industry in 2015, which became the North Sea Transition Authority. And I joined in a HR role. I took on additional things. So I got responsibility for the work we do with the supply chain and with decommissioning in the UK. And then I was given a chance in 2023 to become the chief exec, which is the role that you find me in today.
And could you tell us about the work of the North Sea Transition Authority and what it's all about, please?
So we are an arm's length body of the Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero in the UK government. We regulate the oil and gas sector, the offshore carbon storage sector, and the offshore hydrogen storage and transportation sectors in the UK. These are hugely important parts of not only energy system, but also the economic system of the UK. And so our job is to be the licensing body and the regulatory stewarding body. So we work with industry and with government to progress projects, to then make sure those projects are delivered in the way that they're supposed to be done. And we've got responsibilities for everything from the very early phases of exploration right the way through to decommissioning, which is going to be an increasingly important part of our work. And we expand that work into things like carbon storage. So working to help identify the right places to offer carbon stores, to then license and award those licenses to different companies, and to then steward the projects to make sure that we're injecting, for example, in the first two projects that we've consented to, we'll store over 200 million tons of CO2 permanently in the waters off the UK coast, and making sure those projects deliver.
And how has the situation changed regarding Ukraine and Iran and oil price shocks? Has that affected your work?
It doesn't. So it affects the industry very significantly, most obviously through commodity price. And so that drives different economics for companies, but it also sharpens both political and public and industry attention on things like energy security and being able to meet as much of our energy needs as we can from the UK. And so it affects the weather in that sense. It doesn't directly affect the operations. What can affect things is impacts on the supply chain. And so the oil and gas sector, like any other sector, relies on materials and stuff. And so if the supply chains get disrupted, that can be a challenge. And it has an impact in terms of public perception. And so we live in an era with an ongoing cost of living crisis. A driver of that is energy price. And so if energy costs significantly increase as a result of geopolitical factors, that can impact how the industry is perceived, fairly or unfairly. And that can have an impact, obviously, on the people who work here.
And how do we, from your point of view, how do we transition from oil and gas in the North Sea to achieving net zero in 2050 without affecting employment and the economy? And will green jobs be able to replace the oil and gas jobs?
So it is, I would say, probably the economic, societal, and engineering challenge of our age. So it is an industrial revolution in any other phrase. And so how you do that is incredibly complicated, and we won't get it all right by any stretch. The UK government published a document called the North Sea Future Plan. And what that seeks to do is to set out the government's ambition to do exactly what you've just described, to have a long-term vision for the basin. The basin is kind of the UK's offshore sector. I always describe it as being the crown jewel in our energy system. We're very, very lucky. We can do just about everything So we have a place that can do hydrocarbons, can do carbon storage, can do wind, can do wave, can do tidal, can do floating solar even. It's a hugely advantageous position to be in. Moving through those different sequences of technologies is a real challenge. The oil and gas opportunity is with us now. The wind opportunity is with us now. Floating wind is coming, but it isn't here yet. Hydrogen, I think, is coming, but isn't here yet. Carbon storage is here, but not at large enough scale yet. And so if you imagine it like a graphic equalizer from the 1980s on your stereo, how you fade one up and one down in a skillful way when you don't control all the levers. Because the government is reliant obviously on companies choosing to invest and supply chain being here. But how you get that graphic equalizer balanced is our challenge. The way that we are trying to focus it is through the supply chain. So what we recognize is that when we talk about the jobs in this sector, whether that's in oil and gas or in wind or in CCS, it's the same supply chain. It's the same subsea engineering companies. It's the same fabrication companies. It's the same service companies. And so the transition is happening. It's happening at a real pace. But what we have to try and do is to make sure that we are attracting and retaining investment into oil and gas, which we will need for decades and decades to come. But we're also accelerating the deployment of things like floating offshore wind at pace. But that relies on an awful lot of different factors. Some of them are in our control, many of them are not. So how you do it, in a short answer, you have a plan, and the government has a plan in place. You then need to bring together all the participants, and the government is trying to do that. We have an organisation called the North Sea Future Board that seeks to bring together trade unions, wind, oil and gas, CCS, academics, local government, national governments, both Scotland and the UK are involved, and to try and make sure that you are sharing the burdens and sharing the decisions that will drive the change. It's hugely exciting, but there's a real burden on all of us involved in this because we are talking about many, many tens of thousands of jobs and the energy security of the country, and one of the biggest single economic growth opportunities. So if we get it right, the prizes are enormous.
I do apologise for that question because when I looked at it and I asked you it, I thought we could have a debate for 3 days and still not get through it all. And you've just done an amazing thing. You've covered it off in about a minute, and that's amazing. Thank you for that. So just moving away from the North Sea for a second, you're very involved with, I think you're still very involved with Barnardo's Scotland and the Brightside Trust. Would you like to share some of that with us?
Delighted to. So I'm no longer involved with the Brightside Trust. I'll start there. So Brightside is a brilliant mentoring charity, which your viewers can go and find out. So they just Google Brightside and mentoring. So it's a national mentoring charity that works with young people, particularly those from less advantaged backgrounds, and tries to support them through making informed, confident decisions at turning points in their life, which might be around examination period, thinking about career opportunities and pathways to their future. And I've been involved with them. I was involved with them for about 11 or 12 years, latterly being the chair of the board of trustees. And it's a fantastic organisation, now run by a much more capable chairman, far more handsome than I am, and a brilliant organisation. In about 2017, 2018, I started getting involved with Barnardo's Scotland. So Barnardo's is the UK's biggest children's charity. It's been around since the mid-1800s, founded by the brilliant Dr. Barnardo. And the charity exists to provide and support children in having safer, happier, healthier, and more hopeful childhoods. That's what we exist to do. And each of the 3 Celtic nations, so Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, as well as there being a main board across the whole charity, the governance board, we have a local national advisory board. And I've been part of that since 2017, 2018. And I've been the chair of it since 2024. And in Scotland, we are a significant contributor to the lives of children and young people. So we work with tens of thousands of children and young people across the country, everything from adoption, fostering, supporting and trying to avoid, but also dealing with the impact of child sexual exploitation and child sexual abuse. We have residential facilities. We work with families, intensely with lots of families, right the way through to employment, training and skills to try and help young people find their way in the workforce. So it's a brilliant organisation and one that I'm hugely proud to be able to spend a little bit of time supporting.
I mean, indeed, and not necessarily as rewarding, but I would think a challenge sometimes.
It's honestly, so it's a bringer of perspective like no other.
Yeah.
And so every time I'm involved with anyone who works in one of our services, delivers our support to young people or children or their families, right the way through to people who run our brilliant retail businesses around the UK. You can pop into a Bernardo shop today somewhere near you, I'm sure, and make a valuable contribution. These people are often dealing with a set of challenges, both economically, personally, in terms of safeguarding and well-being, that are extraordinary. And the teams that we work with, hearing from them of the challenges they've got and what they roll their sleeves up and go on with every day, puts into perspective quite sharply some of the things that I might consider to be difficult in my day. They're not. And so I'm really lucky to have that perspective. But also, it's a sector I knew nothing about. And so if I'm someone who enjoys learning things, and so getting to meet a group of people who are in the Premier League of what they do. So if you work for Bernardo supporting young people and children, you're really good at that. And so getting to work with people who are at the top of their game and learn from them and what they do is just cool. And so as well as being very serious, and obviously there are things that are very difficult in the work that we do, it is an extraordinary privilege to be allowed to spend some of my time getting to work with those people. And I'm very grateful to get to do it.
Now, the last question I have for you is, what would you like, how would you, if you could, how would you like to prioritize your rest of your tenure at the North Sea Transition Authority? What focus would you like to, what would you like to focus on?
So I'm really clear. So we are in the process of going through. So the North Sea Future Plan that I mentioned earlier will give rise to legislation, which will be part of what's called the Energy Independence Bill that was announced in the King's Speech, and we expect to kind of be brought forward for a first reading shortly. In that legislation, it will set out the statutory objectives for the organisation moving forward, which are around ensuring that we're delivering value for the country from the assets we've got, whether that's oil and gas or carbon storage or hydrogen, whatever it is. Doing that in a way that is conscious of and commensurate with our responsibilities around net zero. And thirdly, that when we're doing that and the decisions that we take in doing that, consider the transition. Exactly your question earlier. How does this affect the communities, jobs, skills, workers, and so on? So that's the frame in which we will operate. But that's not an ambition. The ambition that I've got for the organisation is that we are here to deliver value for the UK from the subsurface resources that exist. So as a country, as a citizen of the UK, we own that pore space for carbon storage. We own those molecules for oil and gas. Making the most of those for the benefit of the people from the UK, that's what I want us to spend our time doing. And we have got a really high caliber mix of commercial, technical, public and private sector individuals that are here to make that a reality.
Stuart Payne, thank you so much indeed for this interview today. It's deeply appreciated, and thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the work you do. Thank you.
Not at all. Harry, lovely to talk to you, and have a great day.
Thank you.